This diagram illustrates the global economic landscape over the last century, and the scale of American wealth is singular. The United States maintains a gross domestic product exceeding $20 trillion, an output that heavily eclipses the historical baselines of other nations. This concentration of capital functions like a gravitational pull. It draws in the world's most capable engineers, researchers, and entrepreneurs, creating a self-sustaining engine for technological innovation. You see this in the technology sector, where a South African immigrant arrives in the US and builds aerospace and automotive companies that dictate modern infrastructure. The pattern repeats across industries. An engineer from India navigates the American corporate structure to lead one of the most valuable software corporations on the planet. Through its financial incentives and corporate culture, the United States has built the most effective apparatus for concentrating wealth, talent, and geopolitical influence in human history. Yet, the area chart reveals a different story. The top 1% controls 42.5% of the nation's wealth. Below them, over 30% lack homes, student debt is in the millions, and healthcare is heavily privatized. This economic friction translates into direct physical danger. In 2020 alone, the country recorded over 600 mass shootings, resulting in thousands of deaths. This creates a stark contradiction. The nation dictates the terms of the global economy, while the majority of its own people struggle for basic stability. The origins of this power start with land acquisition. When European colonizers arrived in North America, the diseases they brought, like smallpox and influenza, wiped out 80 to 90% of the Native American population. By the 1850s, the newly formed democratic government offered an alternative to European colonial rule. Bordering regions saw the economic benefits of integrating into this system, with territories like Texas choosing to join the United States to escape neighboring conflicts. The government's approach to expansion remained highly aggressive. They purchased the Alaskan Territory from Russia for $7.2 million, overthrew the Kingdom of Hawaii to secure a mid-Pacific stronghold, and paid Spain $20 million to annex the Philippines. The country's footprint was built through a calculated, relentless drive to conquer land and secure resources. The transition from a wealthy nation into a global financial anchor happened because of geography. During the two world wars, European nations decimated their infrastructure, while the United States sat safely separated by an ocean, functioning as an uninterrupted production facility. While supplying weapons and materials to France, Germany, and the UK, the American economy experienced a massive boom. As allied nations drained their treasuries to fight, the United States turned a net economic profit. The turning point arrived in 1944. Seeking stability as the war neared its end, 44 allied nations agreed to peg their own currencies directly to the US dollar, making it the international reserve currency. The devastation of Europe acted as an enormous wealth transfer mechanism. By outproducing and outfinancing its allies, the United States established its economy as the foundation of global trade. With Europe sidelined, the United States entered the Cold War, a decades-long ideological proxy battle against the Soviet Union. This standoff turned American defense spending from a temporary wartime necessity into a permanent pillar of the national. To project its strength across the Atlantic and contain communist influence, the U.S. forged powerful military alliances with Western European countries, establishing NATO in 1949. Abroad, protecting these capitalist interests required severe interventions. U.S. intelligence agencies actively funded opposition groups, backed militant factions, and orchestrated the executions of revolutionaries to topple governments that threatened their economic influence. This radar map reveals the physical requirement of that strategy. Executing this level of global intervention required the government to build an expansive network of more than 800 military bases spread across over 70 different countries. Operating an aggressive, globe-spanning military network requires astronomical amounts of money. To maintain control abroad, the government permanently diverted capital away from the interior development of its own cities and citizens. In the 1990s, the Soviet Union finally collapsed. The ideological war was over, leaving the United States standing alone as the world's sole superpower. This victory was engineered by a succession of leaders who prioritized extreme military posturing and massive defense budgets over domestic stability. some administrations did attempt to pivot towards peaceful alliances and internal civic focus. By that point, however, the massive military-industrial framework was already permanently entrenched in the national budget. Outlasting the Soviet Union proved the effectiveness of the American military engine, but it exposed the long-term neglect of the nation's social infrastructure. To understand the cost of this trajectory, look at the Nordic model, specifically nations like Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. This radar chart compares the US against the Nordic average. It illustrates that while these countries lack a massive GDP or global military dominance, they drastically outperform the United States across major human development metrics. The wealth used to secure influence across the globe is the exact capital that was withheld from domestic social systems. True national success is found in a government's ability to provide a dignified, stable life